Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into someone everyone feels they know, Rosa Parks. But the sources you've shared, well, they show a much, much deeper story than just that one moment on the bus.
That's so true. It's easy for history to kind of flatten people out,
Yeah,
reduce them to one image. But these sources, they let us see what came before 1955 and what happened after.
right.
We get to see the decades of groundwork, where her courage came from, and really the lifelong activism that defined her.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to unpack the why behind it all.
Exactly. So our mission here, using your sources, is to get past the symbol, understand the person, what shaped her, what was this lifelong fight really about, and why that title, Mother of the Civil Rights Movement, that points to so much more. Okay, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So, her beginnings. Rosa Louise McCauley, born February 4th, 1913, Tuskegee, Alabama. And the sources, they immediately put us right in the thick of it, the Jim Crow South.
Yeah, and that context is everything. This wasn't just, the past. It was a specific time when the promises of Reconstruction were gone, totally dismantled, replaced by Jim Crow laws, customs.
Yeah.
All designed to keep white supremacy in place.
The sources bring up Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, that whole separate but equal idea.
Which was a lie, basically, a legal fiction. It was separate, all right, but never equal.
And the day-to-day reality, as these sources show, it was just brutal. Constant reminders, whites-only signs everywhere. Black schools starved for funds compared to white ones.
And public transport.
Yeah.
The sources describe that specific humiliation. Pay at the front, get off, walk to the back door if they let you back on, and always having to give up your seat if a white person wanted it.
It's degrading.
Utterly. But, and this is key in the sources, her family provided this incredible counter-narrative. Her maternal grandfather, Sylvester Edwards.
Yeah, that story's amazing.
Right? Refused to be scared off by the KKK. Sat on his porch with a shotgun. That's not just like bravado. It's teaching quiet strength. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about standing firm anyway. Imagine seeing that as a child.
Wow. Yeah. And her mother, Leona, a teacher. The sources emphasize she taught Rosa to read early, pushed education, self-respect.
Absolutely. And her grandmother, Rose, who had actually lived through slavery, she passed down this sense of inherent dignity, something no law, no sign, no bus driver could take away.
So you see this foundation being built.
Exactly. These figures, this family legacy of quiet strength, valuing education, inherent self-worth, it equipped her. It gave her the inner resources to navigate and eventually challenge that whole system. You can draw a straight line from that upbringing to her later actions.
Okay, so with that kind of grounding, she moves to Montgomery as a young woman. And this part, reading the sources, this is where it gets really interesting for me because she was already involved way before the bus incident.
Totally. This wasn't her first step into activism, not by a long shot. She meets and marries Raymond Parks in 1932. And he wasn't just some guy, he was already an activist, involved with the NAACP, working on the Scottsboro Boys' defense. A major, major case.
So she's marrying into the movement, in a way.
In a big way. And then, by 1943, she joins the Montgomery NAACP herself. And the sources note she was one of the only women there at the time. Becomes secretary to E.D. Nixon, who was a powerhouse leader.
And being secretary wasn't just typing letters, was it?
Oh, not at all. The sources detailed that she was out there investigating racial violence, traveling, documenting horrible incidents, recording all the ways black people were blocked from voting, the poll taxes, those strict literacy tests, flat-out intimidation.
She was gathering intel, essentially, supporting victims.
Frontline work. And she helped organize the Montgomery Voters League, too, pushing for the right to vote.
And then there's the Highlander Folk School experience mentioned in the sources.
Right. Crucial place. Learning about civil rights strategy, nonviolent resistance, connecting with activists from all over, building networks, sharing tactics.
So when you put all that together, the narrative completely shifts.
It has to. These sources make it crystal clear. She's a seasoned strategic activist, deeply involved for years, not just, a tired seamstress who randomly snapped one day. Her actions were rooted in years of work, deep understanding of the stakes.
Which really makes you think, how does all that preparation, that long-term commitment, set the stage for that one pivotal moment?
Exactly. That deep immersion, it prepares you. It gives you the context, the network, the understanding of what's needed.
Okay, so that brings us right to it. December 1st, 1955. The bus. Refusing to give up the seat. The sources call it an act by a woman with calloused hands and an unbreakable spirit. Such a powerful description.
It is. And what the sources really drive home is, yes, it was her individual act of courage, but the response to the boycott that wasn't spontaneous.
No, it had been planned or at least discussed for a while.
For months, yeah. Black leaders were looking for the right test case. And crucially, the right person. Someone with unimpeachable character, deep community respect, who understood the movement's goals. And that was Rosa Parks. Her reputation, her history, it made her the ideal catalyst.
And the boycott itself, 381 days, just wrap your head around that.
It's incredible. The Black community, making up maybe 75% of the bus riders, they just stopped riding completely.
Yeah.
Organized carpools, people walked for miles day after day, rain or shine.
That level of collective action, of sacrifice.
And discipline. They faced threats, violence, arrests, bombings, but they stayed the course, maintained nonviolence, dignity.
The economic pressure must have been immense on the bus company, on downtown stores.
Huge. But the personal cost for Rosa and Raymond, as the sources detail, went way beyond that first arrest.
Oh, absolutely. She lost her job at the Montgomery Fair department store.
Right. And Raymond was forced out of his barbering job because employers were pressured, because of her stand in the boycott.
And then the threats. Daily death threats. They're home targeted. The sources mention the immense stress on their health, their marriage. But they didn't break.
They didn't. The boycott's success, it wasn't just about money or a court ruling, though those mattered. It was this profound display of collective power, brilliant organization, and sheer moral endurance. It's fascinating, isn't it? How her one act, born of years of readiness, sparked and sustained this massive community effort.
Individual courage meets community infrastructure.
Carefully put.
But, like you said at the start, her story is so much bigger than just Montgomery. The sources show, after the boycott, facing all those threats, trouble finding work, they eventually moved to Detroit.
Right. But leaving Montgomery didn't mean leaving the struggle. Not for her. She goes on to work for Congressman John Conyers, Jr. Think about that, working inside the system.
For over 20 years, the sources say, from 65 to 88.
Yeah, using that position to keep advocating for civil rights, for social justice, but from a different angle.
And she stayed connected to the wider movement, too. She was at the March on Washington in '63, supported the Selma marches. She was always there.
Her focus broadened, too. Tackling housing discrimination, fighting for political representation, and the sources really highlight her deep concern for young people, especially urban youth in Detroit.
That comes through so strongly, co-founding the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development in '87.
Yes, focused on motivating young people. That Pathways to Freedom program they ran, taking kids on bus tours of civil rights sites. What a powerful way to connect them to their history, inspire them.
Passing the torch, really.
Exactly. And even in her later years, she remained this moral voice, speaking out against apartheid in South Africa, supporting anti-war efforts, pushing for economic justice.
It's that lifetime of work, isn't it? That continuous thread. That's why Mother of the Civil Rights Movement feels so right. It wasn't just the bus. It was decades before and decades after.
Absolutely. Her life, as these sources laid out, it's almost like a blueprint. It shows the power ordinary people have. People without fancy titles or official positions, they can spark extraordinary change.
And that activism needs both things, that moral clarity, knowing what's right.
And the practical wisdom, knowing how to challenge things effectively. Strategy matters.
Individual courage, yes, but also that collective action. You need both. The community's support was essential.
Righteous anger, fueling strategic thinking. That combination, seen in her and so many others, that's what shifted things.
And the impact wasn't just local or national.
No way. Her story resonated globally. You see echoes in democracy movements, anti-apartheid struggles, women's rights, even current social justice fights. She's way more than just a symbol of one day. She was a lifelong warrior.
So we've dug deep into the sources you sent over, and it's just incredible seeing the full scope of her life laid out, that family legacy setting the stage, those years of quiet, determined activism before the boycott, the strategic brilliance of the boycott, and then decades more work, especially with young people.
Yeah, her story, when you see it this way through these sources, it's such a powerful lesson. Big change, meaningful change. It usually doesn't just happen overnight. It's built on years, sometimes decades of groundwork, strategic planning, organizing, and just the sheer persistence of people committed to a collective goal.
It really redefines courage, doesn't it? Not just one big moment, but a lifetime of showing up.
A lifetime of commitment.
Exactly. Right? So for you listening and thinking about these sources, this whole picture of Rosa Parks.
Yeah, the sources kind of frame her life as this blueprint for change. So thinking about the challenges you see around you today, what part of her blueprint really jumps out? Is it that long game preparation, the quiet intelligence gathering? Is it the focus on building community power, that collective organizing? Or is it the sustained advocacy, sticking with it long after the headlines fade? What part of that whole approach feels most needed, most relevant for bending that arc towards justice in your world right now?
A lot to think about there. Thank you again for sharing these sources with us. They made this deep dive possible.